Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into something big. ISO 9001, the world's go-to standard for quality management, is getting its first major facelift in almost 10 years. So we're going to unpack the brand new 2025 draft and figure out what it really means for how business gets done. All right, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with why we even need a new standard. Then we'll get into the juicy stuff, the big shifts toward people, the planet, and finding new opportunities. And of course, we'll wrap up with what you need to do to get ready. Okay, so first things first, let's tackle the big question right out of the gate. ISO 9001 is a huge deal, right? Over 1 million organizations use it. If it's working so well, why mess with it? Well, the short answer is the world has completely changed. Think about it. The business landscape of 2025 looks nothing like it did back in 2015. We've got new tech, totally different global challenges, and even the way we work is different. So this isn't about tearing everything down and starting over. It's more like a critical software update, a patch to make the standard ready for today's world. So what's the timeline look like for all this? Right now, we're looking at the Draft International Standard, or DIS for short. That's out for voting, and the polls close in November 2025. After they take in all the feedback and tweak things for a final draft, we're expecting the official shiny new standard to drop around September 2026. Okay, so if you're already certified, you can breathe a little easier. Here's the good news. The foundation, the bones of the standard, they're not changing. That 10-chapter structure that everyone knows, it's staying put. That should make this whole transition a whole lot smoother. But just because the structure is familiar, don't think nothing's changing. Oh no, the content inside is definitely evolving. And that brings us to our first major shift, how the standard is starting to really pay attention to people and the planet. First up, and this is a big one, is climate change. Now this builds on a change that was actually introduced in early 2024, but the new draft makes it official. It's now a formal requirement. Organizations have to consider the risks and requirements of climate change when they're figuring out their context and what their stakeholders need. And just to be crystal clear, this isn't a suggestion anymore. It's not optional. The language in the draft is super direct. It says the organization shall determine whether climate change is a relevant issue. That little word shall means everything. It means your quality system has to actively tackle this, head on. All right, now here's something really interesting. The draft is bringing in a new idea, something a lot more human. It's called quality culture. And this is about moving beyond just ticking boxes on processes and procedures. It's about weaving a real commitment to quality and ethics right into the very fabric of the company. And trust me, this isn't just some fluffy buzzword. The draft actually bakes this idea right into some really important clauses. It makes it a clear responsibility for top management, a crucial part of what every employee needs to be aware of, and even a factor in the kind of work environment you're creating. This whole focus on culture, it's really part of a much bigger theme in the 2025 draft. And that theme is all about making quality systems smarter, more proactive, and better at adapting to the world we live in today. So if you remember, the 2015 standard was a game changer because it brought in risk-based thinking. Well, the new draft takes that and levels it up. It puts opportunity on the exact same level as risk. So it's not just about stopping bad stuff from happening anymore. It's now just as much about actively going after the good stuff. It really forces a much more balanced strategy. And this isn't just a vague idea either. It's a structural change in the document itself. The draft actually gives risks and opportunities their own separate subclauses. By carving out a whole new clause just for opportunities, that's 6.1.3, the standard is basically screaming that they are now just as important and need to be managed just as proactively. Okay, so moving on from the high-level strategy, the draft also gets down to the nitty-gritty. It gets really practical about how technology has totally reshaped how we all work. For instance, it now talks about the kind of infrastructure you need to support remote and hybrid work, which is huge, right? It also updates the examples it gives for things like customer communication and feedback to include the tools we all use every day, like websites and social media. Another area that's getting beefed up is managing change. The standard is getting a lot tougher here. The draft lays out more explicit steps, so you can't just plan a change anymore. Now you have to actively monitor how effective it is, make sure you communicate it the right way, and then formally review how it all turned out. Okay, so let's pause for a second. We've got all these new things on the table. Climate change, quality culture, this huge new focus on opportunities. What does all of this actually mean for your organization, like right now? I think the most important thing to remember is this. It's an evolution, not a revolution. The draft is all about modernizing the standard, bringing it in line with how businesses actually operate today and the challenges they're going to face tomorrow. But it's doing all of that on the solid, stable foundation of the 2015 version. So let's circle back to that timeline. What should you be doing right this minute? The big thing is to start getting familiar with these draft changes. Start thinking about what they might mean for your system. But maybe don't start any massive overhauls just yet. Remember, this text isn't set in stone until that final publication in 2026. And when you boil it all down, well, that core framework of 10 chapters is staying the same. The details inside, well, they're changing to reflect almost a decade of massive shifts in technology, culture, and the environment. And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? The world's benchmark for quality is on the move. It's evolving. The real question is your organization ready to evolve with it?